The 911 call that backfired. A tale of rights, rules, and redemption. It was a crisp Tuesday morning in Willow Creek, a suburban neighborhood where the lawns were manicured, the mailboxes matched, and the rules were stricter than a librarian's glare. I was nursing a lukewarm coffee, staring out my kitchen window, when my wife, Sarah, clicked on her holster with the same ease she tied her shoelaces. A federal agent and firearms instructor, Sarah wasn't just allowed to carry a gun, she was expected to. Her German shepherd, Max, pranced around her, tail thumping like a metronome. She winked at me, leashed Max, and headed out for their usual loop around the neighborhood trail. I didn't think twice. In our open carry state, Sarah's routine was as normal as the sunrise. But across the street, behind a twitching curtain, Nancy was watching, and she was about to turn our quiet morning into a storm that would shake the entire community. Nancy was the kind of neighbor who measured your grass with a ruler and called the HOA if it was a quarter-inch too long. Her blonde hair was always teased into a helmet, and her eyes gleamed with the thrill of catching someone breaking her version of the rules. When Sarah passed her house, gun holstered and Max trotting happily, Nancy didn't wave. She didn't ask questions. She grabbed her phone and dialed 911, her voice trembling with rehearsed panic. "There's a woman with a gun on my street. She's got a huge dog, and she's scaring everyone." The dispatcher, calm and professional, asked for details. Nancy painted Sarah as a menace, conveniently leaving out that the gun was holstered. Max was wagging his tail, and Sarah was just walking her dog. But when the dispatcher matched Sarah's description to Agent Sarah Thompson, a federally certified firearms trainer, the tone shifted. "Ma'am," the dispatcher said firmly, "if that's Agent Thompson, she's fully licensed. We're sending a cruiser as protocol, but please stay inside." 39 seconds after Nancy's call, the police weren't rushing to arrest Sarah, they were checking if she needed backup. Nancy, oblivious, thought she'd just saved the neighborhood. She was about to learn she'd picked a fight with the wrong woman. By the time a squad car rolled up, I was on the porch, clueless about the drama unfolding. The officer stepped out, grinned, and saluted Sarah. "Morning, Agent Thompson. Got a call about a threat. Guessing it's the usual?" Sarah laughed, nodding toward Nancy's house. "Blonde bun, lives across the street." The officer chuckled. "Yup, said you were waving a gun. Trail cams show your hand never left Max's leash." They fist bumped, and Sarah strolled back home, shaking her head. "Well," she said, "that's a new record. Usually takes 2 weeks for someone to call the cops on me." I wanted to laugh, but I knew Nancy wouldn't let this go. She wasn't the type to admit she was wrong. Sure enough, within hours, the neighborhood's online group chat exploded. Nancy posted a dramatic warning. "An armed woman is living among us, openly carrying in front of kids and pets. I've contacted the HOA for action." Neighbors pushed back. "That's Sarah," one wrote. "She trains cops. She's legit." Another added, "Open carry's legal here, Nancy." But Nancy doubled down, drafting a petition for an HOA meeting to ban firearms in shared spaces. It was absurd, a woman who couldn't tell a BB gun from a Glock trying to outlaw a federal agent's rights. Sarah wasn't mad. She was amused. "Let her push," she told me that night. "People like her always trip over their own rules." But Nancy's 911 call had pinged a federal system, and falsely accusing an agent of firearm misuse wasn't just a local spat. It was now logged, recorded, and under review. Nancy had no idea the storm she'd unleashed. The next morning, our doorbell rang before dawn. Sarah, in her robe, sipped coffee as I opened the door. There stood Nancy, arms crossed, flanked by 2 HOA board members, Harold, who once fined a guy for a tacky mailbox, and Susan, who waged war on rogue squirrels. Nancy thrust a flimsy paper at us. "We're holding an emergency HOA meeting to ban firearms in common areas due to community concern." Sarah took the paper, glanced at it, and slipped it into her pocket. "Thanks," she said coolly. "I'll be there." Nancy marched off, thinking she'd won. Harold and Susan looked nervous, trailing behind her. The meeting was held in the community clubhouse, a faded building with creaky chairs and stale coffee. Nancy had turned it into a spectacle, standing before a whiteboard with flyers titled "Protecting Willow Creek, a Firearm-Free Future." About 20 residents showed up, mostly retirees lured by free donuts. Nancy ranted about public intimidation and children's safety, never mentioning Sarah's credentials or the police dismissing her call. When it was time for comments, Sarah stood. "Are you proposing to ban a constitutional right based on a false 911 call?" she asked calmly. Nancy sputtered. "You had a gun." Sarah nodded. "Holstered. Legal. I was walking my dog." Harold chimed in. It made residents uncomfortable. Sarah turned to the room. "Raise your hand if you were uncomfortable." Silence. Not even Susan moved. Sarah continued. "This bylaw violates state and federal law. The HOA has no authority to enforce it." Nancy waved her off. "This isn't a debate. We'll vote." They did. 10 for, 7 against, 3 abstained. Nancy grinned like she'd just passed a congressional bill. The bylaw was effective immediately. Back home, Sarah typed a single email to her federal agency. Request for legal clarification. HOA bylaw overriding state carry rights. Within an hour, she got a reply. Forwarded to legal. "Do not engage further. We'll handle it." For a few days, things went quiet. Nancy taped copies of the bylaw to trees and mailboxes, one fluttering on our doorstep. Sarah kept it as a keepsake, her eyes twinkling with mischief. Then the twist came. A neighbor, Tom, a tech-savvy retiree, had recorded the HOA meeting and posted it online in a law enforcement forum. The thread, "When HOA Nancy tries to ban a federal agent," went viral. A clip of Nancy saying, "I don't care what the law says, she's not walking here like she owns the place," was flagged for harassment. Sarah documented every thinjamails, posts, recordings, and filed a complaint with the state attorney general. A week later, the HOA received a letter from the state's Civil Liberties Office, launching an inquiry into the bylaw's legality and the board's conduct. Nancy's face reportedly paled. Harold stuttered. Susan claimed she only voted yes because Nancy pressured her. But the real bombshell hit when the state audited the HOA's finances. Tom had noticed discrepancies in maintenance fees, and a landscaper, Miguel, tipped off the state about Nancy inflating invoices and pocketing the difference. A fake vendor, Blue Sky Solutions, had been paid for non-existent services. Nancy's empire of control unraveled. She claimed the audit was retaliation, but the timeline proved it started independently. Neighbors turned on her. Harold hid in his garden. Susan posted a tearful apology online. The HOA meetings became ghost towns. Sarah stayed above it all, walking Max, helping neighbors with permit questions, even giving a free firearms safety talk at the library. Meanwhile, Nancy made one last desperate move. She contacted a local news station, claiming she was being harassed by a federal agent. Channel 7 sent a reporter, Lisa, to interview Sarah. Sarah invited her in, laid out her credentials, the bylaw, the state's inquiry, and the HOA audio. "Know the law before you rewrite it," Sarah told the camera. The segment aired, showing Sarah walking Max, gun holstered, nodding to neighbors. The caption read, "Federal trainer or neighborhood threat? You decide." The clip went viral locally, with neighbors reposting it and Reddit threads mocking HOA Nancy. Nancy's final stand of defamation lawsuit against Sarah fizzled when her lawyer realized the case was baseless. Then the state's Office of Public Integrity stepped in, uncovering Nancy's fake tax deduction claims. She packed up and left Willow Creek. Her house sold quietly. The HOA dissolved its board, held open elections, and rewrote its bylaws to align with state law. Sarah declined a nomination for president, nominating Ellen, a fair-minded retiree who won in a landslide. Months later, Willow Creek held its annual summer festival, free of Nancy's micromanaging. Kids painted signs for the trail, now called Thompson's Path, with a drawing of Sarah and Max. Sarah was invited to speak at a state summit on HOA abuse, her story becoming a case study for communities nationwide. She spoke not of revenge, but of trust and accountability, earning a standing ovation. Back home, a retired judge sent her a letter. "You won a war without starting one and walked away without demanding credit." That's rare. Sarah kept the letter with Nancy's faded bylaw and the state's case brief not as trophies, but as reminders of what she never became. Willow Creek transformed. Neighbors waved freely, rules were fair, and trust replaced fear. Sarah still walked Max every morning, her holster clicking softly, her stride steady. One day, a girl asked if she was a hero. Sarah smiled. "I just make sure people play by the rules." The neighborhood had learned its lesson, not through shouting, but through Sarah's quiet strength. Nancy's name faded, a cautionary tale of control gone wrong. Sarah didn't need applause, she'd already changed everything by refusing to back down. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments below. How would you handle a situation like this? Do you think Nancy's actions were driven by fear or power? And what about Sarah's approach could staying calm in the face of injustice work in other conflicts? Let's dive into the bigger picture. How do we address violence, fear, and unfairness in our communities? Take a stand, share your perspective, and let's get the conversation going.